cows up the road one more time, and I'm going to follow you. And I'm going to bring them all back home with your credit card. I'm going to go buy them back. And I'm going to bring them back home. And don't you mess with me. Don't you think for 1 minute I won't do it. Because I will. These cows are no longer, cattle. They're like people to me. They're like people. They're like my dogs and cats. I'm having an awakening on a freaking cattle ranch. Didn't even know it. I thought I was going batshit crazy. He said, well, Renee, don't ask me those kinds of questions. I said, well, I'm asking and I want to know why we don't eat our own cows. And he told me it was because he knew them. And I was like, oh, I see. So you can eat the ones you don't know, but you can't eat the ones you do know. I had no idea that our days were numbered as a cattle rancher. Humans have such a capacity to be desensitized. We have such a capacity to just be shut off. Then we have such a capacity for compassion as well. It was like slow motion for me. It comes out,
Renee, would you like? Oh.
That's the way it was for me. I was like, oh my God, you can't make this up.
Alright legends, welcome back to another episode of the Plant Fueled Podcast. It's me, Callum, your vegan nutritionist, and the guy who's on a mission to fill your world with plant-powered inspiration. Today, I've got a story just for you that's going to hit hard, pull at heartstrings, and leave you feeling fired up for change. Today's guest is someone I've been so excited to bring on for a while now. Many of you may already know her, the unstoppable force that is Renée King Sonnen, the incredible woman behind the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. Now, this isn't just a sanctuary, it's a Texas cattle ranch that was transformed into a refuge for animals, and the journey that has got her there is nothing short but epic. Renee's story is wild, emotional, and downright courageous. She moved onto a multi-generational cattle ranch with her husband, Tommy, a rancher through and through. Life seemed set until two little calves, including one cheeky spirit named Rowdy Girl, opened her eyes in a way that she could never see coming. These animals weren't just farm stock, they were sentient, full of personality and emotion, and the realization changed everything. It created an awakening. It's not every day you hear about a cattle rancher's wife going vegan and standing up against the very foundation of her family's livelihood. But that's exactly what Renee did. She didn't just go vegan, she fought to transform the entire ranch. She battled internal struggles, external pressures, and created her own obstacles, pledging to buy back the cows before they could even make it to the sale barn. The road was tough, but with sheer grit, determination, and love for these animals, Renee turned that ranch into Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. We dive deep into what it's like standing her ground, how her decision affected her relationship with Tommy, and the immense challenges they face in making the transition from ranchers to animal advocates. We'll talk about the birth of the Rancher Advocacy Program, and how this powerful movement has spurred a documentary, a book, and sparked a whole wave of awareness across the globe. Renee is a powerhouse in every sense of the word, and her story is living proof that change is possible, even in the most unexpected places. This is a story that has touched the hearts of many, and by the end of this episode, I guarantee you'll just be as inspired as I am. So if you're feeling moved by her journey and want to get involved, whether that's donating, volunteering, or even just spreading the word, check out the links below for all the ways you can help support Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. But before we dive in, let me just take a moment to say thank you to every single one of you legends out there for your ongoing support of the Plant Fueled Podcast. If you're loving these conversations as much as I am, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or dropping us a star rating. Whatever the platform of your choice lets you do. Every bit of your feedback helps the podcast grow, and it lets me keep bringing you the incredible guests and the stories that you keep asking for. Alright legends, let's not wait any longer. Get ready to be blown away by the amazing Renée King Sonnen. Let's dive in.
Is it okay if I eat my watermelon?
Yeah, enjoy your watermelon. I wouldn't expect anything more. I love it.
All right, good.
Also, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So you have an incredible story. You've got like an incredible journey that we don't really get to see much on this podcast. It's nice to kind of step away from nutrition and, all those kind of vegan myths and various other topics that don't really matter as much, like, where do you get your protein? But instead we have like a remarkable and wild story that, you don't really see that often. But Renee, for the people that may not be familiar with who you are, who is Renée King Sonnen?
Well, Who am I? I am a 66-year-old rowdy girl, number one. And, Rowdy Girl is actually a cow, but, I identify as a cow. And that's that. Uh, because Rowdy Girl is like my counter, like she's the yin to my yang. Without Rowdy Girl, you wouldn't be talking to me today. So, I fell in love with a calf named Rowdy Girl, and Renée King Sonnen became a messenger for her story. And Renée King Sonnen, prior to Rowdy Girl, was a country and western rock and roll singer. I've had my own bands. I've been in real estate. I've built a medical spa with a group of doctors. I have almost 1,000 hours in yoga teacher training. I've been doing yoga for almost 4 decades. So Renée King Sonnen is quite the personality, but Renée King Sonnen, once Rowdy Girl came into the picture, boy, did she ever change everything.
That is incredible. There's so much to kind of unpack there. Like there's you have so much of a life. But obviously, like there's not many, you've gone to a cattle ranch, you've moved to a cattle ranch, and there's not many, I'm guessing, cattle rancher wives that, end up going against like the cattle rancher and subsequently creating a chain of events that creates like launching or ending a ranch and ending up with a sanctuary.
Yeah, well, we're the first documented in the world to go vegan and turn their whole life around and live to tell about it anyway. So, it's not very fashionable to go vegan on a cattle ranch, and it upsets the apple cart. And so, when that happened to me, I didn't know that it was going to create such quite frankly, a movement, and that's what's happened. I mean, me going vegan, not just, not a plant-based vegan, but me going ethically vegan because of what I began to witness firsthand as a person that loved animals. I always loved animals. I just didn't connect to the animals I was eating. I didn't have any connection or feelings whatsoever about the animals I ate because I didn't know it, but, we had been masterfully programmed not to. And so when I began to have feelings for Rowdy Girl, and then I realized that I was eating the same type of flesh on a regular, I began to have lots of conflicts inside, internal turmoil.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, I feel like it's one of those things that, like, as soon as you kind of, especially when you start naming an animal as well, it becomes so much more personal. And like, I don't think myself I could, like, if I was to name an animal, I'd be able to then, eat the animal as well afterwards. And I think it's one of those kind of distressing things in my mind. I'm like, if I was to name that, could I then eat that?
Yeah, and the answer is most people absolutely cannot. And that was the one thing my husband, used to tell me, when I would come home and tell him I was naming the cows, he would tell me, Renee, you got to stop naming them cows. You ain't gonna be able to part with them if you name them. And so that's true. Absolutely.
So how did this all start for you? Because how did Rowdy Girl get into your life to then create this like domino effect that's like created what it is now?
Well, let me put down my watermelon. Uh, I'm a little bit hungry, but I just grabbed it and thought, well, I'm just going to stick it there. You know, I married my husband, Tommy Sonnen, for the second time in March of 2010. March of 2010, we married for the second time. The first time we divorced 10 years prior, and then we remarried, and I moved to the cattle ranch. And I didn't really want to move there. I was a city girl. At the time, I was producing a Texas Women in Country Music showcase around the Houston area. I was a full-time real estate agent, very successful in my job, and I really didn't want to move, on a cattle ranch where there's a bunch of cow crap and, dirt and rocks and mud and gates to open and all that. I mean, that was not in my plans. But, Tommy wouldn't have it any other way. So if I was going to marry him, I was going to have to move. And in so doing, I began to become a country girl, you know. Uh, and I always loved animals, and I never saw the animals like the cows out there in the pastures. I never paid any attention to them at all. They were just cattle. And Tommy wanted me to start getting more involved in the cattle ranch. I would, do my real estate, produce my music, do the things I did. And then he would get a resentment because I wouldn't help him open gates. I wouldn't help him fix fences. I wouldn't help him, when he was baling hay. And so what he did is he came home one day and he told me about these two baby calves that needed a mama up the road. And he was appealing to the part of me that had never been able to, to be a mama because I could never conceive. And so whenever he told me about these two babies that needed a mama, I was like, really? Well, tell me more. And he told me more. We went and looked at them. And I bought these two calves. One of them I named Rowdy Girl, and one of them was Bobo. Rowdy Girl was a little bouncing bundle of joy. She came barreling out, kicking her heels. She was rowdy, and so that's how she got her name. And Bobo died very young. She died probably within the first couple of weeks. She had a failure to thrive disease, but Rowdy Girl, she thrived, and she became the reason I'd get up in the morning. She became the reason I wanted to go out in the evening. And so this city girl started becoming a bona fide country girl because I wanted to be with my Rowdy Girl. And Rowdy Girl wanted to be with me. And so we became very, very close. And through her, I began to see the sentience of all the other cows. It was through her, when I was bottle feeding her, that I began to it's quite spiritual actually. So I began to have a spiritual experience with her because, I never noticed those cows before. Like I was telling you, they just were a herd to me, a herd of cattle. But when I was feeding Rowdy Girl, they were individuals. I began to see them one by one. I began to name them. I began to see who they were. And it was as if she was transmitting this to me. And anyway, I would stop feeding Rowdy Girl and I'd have to go back into the house and I'd have to be a good cattle rancher's wife. And if I told Tommy, or when I did tell him, and I did, about my experiences, he would shut me down, tell me I couldn't do that and stuff. So
Yeah, like that's the thing. I think when you start to kind of like see that sentience and like see these different personalities, because as we all know, I think everybody sees like, dogs and cats with these like personalities, but that also that goes throughout the whole animal kingdom as well. As like, it's not just cats, dogs, it's, cows, rabbits, llamas, whatever. Everything has these personalities. And as soon as you start to kind of spend time with various different animals for a long period of time, you start to see that there's these different personalities. Like, for instance, like even over where I am at the moment, like there's a few birds that come and sit on the balcony, these like cockatoos, and there's one that's a little shit, but that's his personality. Like, it's there. He's cheeky, he's a little shit, and I love him to pieces.
absolutely, they definitely
But
have their personalities. Cows are no exception.
Oh, exactly that. And I think like even like looking like I think a lot of people see these videos on like TikTok and Instagram where they see like these reels of like cows with personalities, and they don't really think too much of it because they see it, they're like, oh, that's incredible, and then they swipe to the next thing, and then it's out of their mind. Whereas obviously you have that constant experience as well with Rowdy Girl and all the other cows.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surrounded on a daily basis by individuals that uh, no, most people never give the time of day to. Like we have a turkey named Antonio that lives most of the time in the house when it's hot because he can't be in temperatures over 85 degrees without suffering tremendously, and he could have a heat stroke and die. And so he lives in the house, and most of the time, and when it's good outside and nice, like in the morning he goes out, and in the late evening he'll go out. But that's Antonio. And when I used to eat their legs, I used to eat their breast, I used to carve into their bodies on Thanksgiving. And now I, I see this bird, and with a person. I mean, he has got a biggest personality. He loves to hang out with humans, and he'll sit right beside us when we're working, and just be happy as can be. And he greets everybody that come in. He is the official greeter, and he doesn't bite. He's just calm. He likes to have the top of his head, scratched, and he's beautiful. And you know, uh, personality plus, and then we have, a Muscovy duck named Lou that is just ornery as heck. And you never know whether he's going to be mad at you or not. And if he's mad at you, he'll come take a bite out of your leg, and if he's not, he just wants to hang out. But it doesn't hurt, it's just a little unnerving. Uh, we have a chicken named Red. She's probably about 8 years old. And most chickens, are eaten, by the time they're 6 to 8 weeks old. But Red is about 8 years old, and she's got a mass in her stomach, and, it's inoperable. She lives in the house, and she goes outside when the weather's good. But she's ornery, and she'll come peck at you and all, she's got big personality. And I used to eat their bodies, I used to eat their legs, and never thinking that the legs I was eating belonged to somebody else that might want them, that might need them legs, that might need them wings. Uh, Never did I make the connection until I was actually working on one time. It was when I first went vegan and first started taking care of chickens in a sanctuary. I was working on one. Her name was Dixie Chick, and I was massaging her little leg because she had an injury. And I began to realize that what I was massaging was the flesh I used to eat. And it made me literally, I want to gag. I mean, I had a sensation of wanting to throw up because I was in that moment caring for her leg like a massage therapist, which I used to be licensed to do. I was caring for her leg, and then I had the distinct memory of eating their legs. And it's like, what changed? Why was I caring for her that day and eating them other days?
I feel exactly the same because I used to go to this bar, and when you get like unlimited chicken wings, and I'm kind of like I was just munching on those thinking nothing of it. And then when I go to like sanctuaries or anything like that, and I see these chickens, I'm like, oh fuck, what what was I doing?
I used to do that too. I loved chicken wings. I used to eat them like nobody's business.
Like, and it's just these were unlimited chicken wings. So I was kind of like I was eating however many, and then I'm like, they only have two, so that was quite a few. That's quite a few, or quite many chickens that I was consuming the wings of, which is wild to me now thinking about it.
It's repulsive. It blows my mind that I can have that humans have such a capacity to be desensitized. We have such a capacity to just be shut off, you know. And then we have such a capacity for compassion as well once we break through that conditioning, which we've been programmed uh, since we were babies.
Oh, absolutely. 'Cause I think everybody's in that conditioning, because there's not many people that I know that were born like, vegan or vegetarian or anything like that, and like it's just that kind of social conditioning that you kind of like sometimes you break out of like later on in life, and sometimes you don't, and like that's not to say a person's bad because of it. It's just it's just a system we've grown up in.
Yep, it is. It's the blue pill or the red pill. Yeah.
So obviously you find you realize that these like cows have like sentience and like, yeah, but was that then your journey to becoming, oh, obviously vegan? Was it still a long journey after that, or was it very much like this is like an overnight thing and
Oh no.
like
Oh no. No, I began my relationship with Rowdy Girl, and almost 5 years later, I went vegan. It wasn't overnight. It was. I mean, cattle ranchers don't go vegan. If you do, you are going to really suffer the consequences unless you're prepared and thinking about it. And I wasn't. I never was consciously going vegan. In my mind, I never once thought to myself, I think I'll go vegan. I just began to have an awakening on a cattle ranch. It was like little bit by little bit, day by day, they began to wear on me. And I remember the first day that my husband sent the babies to the sale barn that I was there. Um, I was out there trying to help. I thought, oh, okay. So let me go out there and help. It was him and his partner, Robert. They were out there rounding up, the babies. And the way they did it was they would, bait them to go into the trailer, to the red trailer with sweet feed. And they had a chain over the door so that only the babies could get in and the mamas couldn't. So, because the babies were smaller, 6 months or so. And so when there was half a dozen or so in there, they would close the gate. So they closed the gate and then they took off. And the mamas just started crying. The babies started crying. Their eyes bulged out of their heads. The mamas chased the trailer all the way. We had 1.5 miles of highway frontage. They ran after that trailer. When my husband took the turn, him or his partner won. When they took the turn to go up Highway 35, those cows just kept trying to chase that trailer all the way up the fence line, crying, and because their babies had been taken from them, and I'll never forget that because those mamas cried for about a week or so, looking for their babies, hoping and praying they would show up, and I would go outside and cry with them. And I wasn't a vegan. I was just having an awakening on a Texas cattle ranch. And I dropped to my knees and asked God to forgive me. And I didn't know what I was asking forgiveness for, but I felt horrible for these cows that had just lost their babies. And I'm sure that me never having my own babies had a lot to do with that because I couldn't imagine giving birth. They have, they wait 9 months before they have a baby, just like a woman. And then to be with them for 6 to 8 months and then just have them stolen like that. It's horrible. And anyway, my husband told me I had to put on my big girl panties and grow up and learn that this is what we do. This is how you feed the world. And And so that was the first time my heart was broken in a way that I can't really explain, but I wasn't vegan. I didn't go vegan. Uh, my husband just had to keep trying to hide it from me because if he would take those babies away whenever I was home, I would cry and I'd have a lot of emotions, and we had a lot of fights about it because I didn't like what we were doing. I didn't like the way it made me feel. That's all I knew. I just didn't like the way it made me feel. And so he would try to do it when I wasn't there. But I always knew because when I'd come home and after he did it, the mamas were crying and the babies were freaking gone. I mean, what do you think? I'm crazy or what? But, that's how it started. And it was a long time. It took a long time for me to go vegan. It's a story that starts there, and then I kept on pressuring my husband. I wanted to know why we were doing what we were doing. What happened to those babies? I began to watch slaughterhouse videos over time. Here I am, a cattle rancher, watching slaughterhouse videos, trying to understand where the babies went. And Tommy kept telling me I was watching PETA propaganda, and none of it was true. It was all fabricated, propaganda. And so then I tried to, see if that was true. And, I was doing all my research, and I just started bawling my eyes out every day. Towards the end, I wanted to figure out how we could do things more humane. Uh, I thought, well, maybe if we bought our milk from a milkman and got our meat from a butcher, that actually butchered the cows, instead of, going to the store, we'd be better off. And I mean, I tried all kind of crazy things to feel better about doing the wrong thing. There ain't no right way to do the wrong thing, but I kept trying to figure it out. I guarantee you. Mhm.
And was there then that turning point as well? Then we're just like, we can't send these cows to slaughter anymore. Like what do we do? Like how do you stop this?
Well, I mean, my husband wasn't thinking that, and um, I was trying to figure out how to make sense of it all. I mean, we really did. We started getting our milk from a milkman, and he would bring us this milk from cows that had the top of the lid had the names of the cows on them. So there'd be Polly, there'd be Sally, there'd be Della, there'd be Teresa, whatever. And I felt so good drinking, the breast milk out of Teresa. How crazy is that? But we did that. We got our cheese, we got our yogurt, we got our all that from a dairy. And I started feeling better about it. And it wasn't any better. But and then one day I told Tommy, I said, "Hey, why don't we kill one of our cows and eat it? How come we send all our cows to the sale barn, but we don't eat any of our own cows?" And he said, because we would buy all this expensive grass-fed beef from Whole Foods or wherever, and yet we would send all these cows to be slaughtered, never eat a one of them. And he said, "Well, Renee, don't ask me those kinds of questions." I said, "Well, I'm asking, and I want to know why we don't eat our own cows." And he told me it was because he knew them. And I was like, "Oh, I see. So you can eat the ones you don't know, but you can't eat the ones you do know. Now ain't something's rotten in Denmark." And so anyway, uh, that started me on a whole nother rabbit hole that I went down. And I told Tommy, I said, "Look, I decided we were going to eat one of our cows." And now we never did. Um, this is over a course of years, okay? I mean, it was just always, oh, it was very tense in our home, you know. Um, and I wasn't a vegan, and I wasn't thinking about going vegan. I just didn't like the way I felt doing this crap. And anyway, I told him one day, I said, we're gonna eat one of our own cows. Which one? Which one? I talked to the milkman. His name was Tom. I said, and he knows a bunch of people in the community, and they're willing to go in with us and butcher one of our animals, and we can feed several families. And he was like, what? Yeah, he was like, are you crazy? I said, nope. I said, if we're gonna do this, if we're gonna be cattle ranchers, by God, we're gonna kill one of our own cows and we're gonna eat it. And well, he was like, I don't think I could do that. I said, well, we're going to. So this is what I kept doing. See, I kept pushing the envelope with him. And I said, okay, pick one. And so he said, well, if I had to pick one, I'd pick Lucky. I said, no, why would you pick Lucky? He said, well, actually, yeah, his name was Lucky at the time. Um, it might have been Broke Leg. That bull's name used to be Broke Leg because he got lucky one time when he jumped out of the cell barn trailer, and he almost broke his leg. And then Tommy said, that cow, that bull, he ain't gonna make it. We ought to put him down. We ought to go ahead and just send him to the cell barn because that leg, something's wrong with it. It ain't never gonna be right. So I'd pick him. And so there we go. We picked one. And so anyway, unfortunately for fortunately for Lucky, and unfortunately, but fortunately now for Tommy, I went vegan in between all that, and that was in October of 2014. And what happened was we sent the last of the cows to the cell barn in February of 2014. We didn't know that was going to be the end. That's the time that Lucky jumped out and almost broke his leg. It was in February. And that is actually Rowdy Girl's firstborn son. And so from February to October is when all our fights escalated. And I didn't know that I was going to be vegan the following year. I had no idea. I had no idea that our days were numbered as a cattle rancher. But month by month, the tension mounted. And I told Tommy, I started watching more and more of those slaughterhouse videos. I was watching them every day, Callum. I was crying, screaming every day. I was losing my mind on a daily basis from what I was figuring out and finding and discovering about what we were doing. And Tommy couldn't handle me. I mean, because the way our house was at the time, there was a cutout between the living room and my office where I had where I was watching all those videos, and he was in the other room watching the news. He would turn the news up really loud to try to drown out me with all that slaughterhouse going on and me screaming and crying. And so if you can imagine the tension, and he would scream at me to stop that. He'd come in there and say, Renee, quit watching. What are you doing? I said, this is what we're doing. These animals go here. And I'm not a vegan. I'm having an awakening on a freaking cattle ranch. Didn't even know it. I thought I was going batshit crazy. And I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. And then on Halloween Day, we were getting ready to go to my mother-in-law's house for our we had a yearly thing with them. We'd go to the block party. All the kids would go in their costumes. And there was always, a little parade down there, on the block. And all the kids would come and get candy. And all the adults would sit out there and, have a beer or whatever they do. And, the kids, and there was always food. Well, I'm watching more videos. And then I stumble upon, and it's Halloween. And then I stumbled upon Melanie Joy. You know her?
I know Melody Joy. Yeah.
So I know her very good now, very well. She and I are actually friends. But Dr. Melanie Joy came on, and it was all about why uh, why we eat pigs, wear cows, and love dogs, or something like that. And it was on carnism, and there was a family eating beef stew, and the family was eating beef stew around the table, and everybody's enjoying it so much. Oh, this tastes so good. And somebody said, "What is this recipe?" And the lady of the house says, "Oh, I'm so glad you asked. You start off with a pound of very young golden retriever." And you know this story?
Yeah, I know the story. Yeah.
And anyway, that was the first time I'd heard it, and I was like, oh my God. And I did just like that, and so did everybody else on the camera. They were like, "Oh my God, I can't eat that." And I was with them. And then she was like, "No, never, just kidding. It's really a cow." And nobody could keep eating because their consciousness for that split second got hijacked by the notion that they were eating a baby golden retriever. And Tommy comes in about that time and says, "Renee, we got to go. We got to go. You got to go put your makeup on or something. You look terrible." And because I'd been crying. And so I went and got dressed, and we left, and we go to my mother-in-law's Halloween night. We walk in her house, all the kids, all the in-laws, all the outlaws, all the costumes, all this stuff. And my mother-in-law comes out with a pot of
Beef stew.
and it was like slow motion for me. Okay. And it was like, she comes out,
Renee, would you like both?
and that's the way it was for me. I was like, "Oh my God, you can't make this up. I'm in the script. It just happened. I just watched this." And I was like, "No, I can't eat that." Just like they did, on the film. And she was like, "Why not, Renee?" And all the kids, all the commotion, everything's going. And I said, "Because it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it, and I can't eat it." And oh my God, everybody got quiet. Everybody looked at me. And my mother-in-law was like, "What did you say?" I repeated it in the silence. "It's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it. I ain't eating it. I'm done." And she was like, "Well, Renee, you can pick it out." And I was like, "Nope. There ain't no more picking it out for me." My husband was looking at me like, "Oh my God." I mean, his mama's name was Effie. She was like the southern matriarch of the family. You didn't tell her you weren't going to eat her beef stew. You certainly wasn't going to tell her it was like floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it. And I did that. They already thought I was crazy because he divorced me once already. And now here I am. Here I am. Anyway, if you can only imagine. And so anyway, Tommy and I went home directly after that. And man, it was Katie bar the door. I had slid down that rabbit hole. I had gone vegan on the spot. I didn't know I was going vegan that day. All I knew is that was over, and I got on my computer because I remembered and looking at all those slaughterhouse videos, stumbling on a bit of vegan stuff, but I didn't pay no mind. I'm not going to go vegan, but I remembered stumbling on some of this stuff, and I went, "Oh my God, I've gone vegan. I'm a vegan." Oh my God. And so I start looking for friends on Facebook, people on Facebook that are vegan. And I stumbled upon a vegan registry, a global vegan registry. I found a friend. Her name was Jeannie. She's my friend to this day. She was like 18 years vegan. And yeah, that's where my journey as a vegan began.
I love that, and just the fact that like you openly were just like, I can't eat this anymore, and just that was it. So, like, did like after that, were the cows still going to the sale barn afterwards, or did you just completely stop that? Because I feel like there's going to be a lot of like tension between you and Tommy at this point.
Oh my God. Okay. I've gone vegan, and I told him, I said, dude, you ain't eating no more animal products in this house. No more. You're going to eat meat. You're going to eat it out there. He was like, this is my house too. I said, it may be your house, but there ain't no more animal products going to be in this house. And I started throwing them all out. I mean, I turned into his worst nightmare. I really did. I was not a kind vegan. I was not nice. I was not understanding. I would not let him cook any meat in that house. I would not let him bring it in the house. And as it was, I was living in a house that was full of deer heads. I mean, my husband was a big hunter. We had, I ain't kidding, hundreds of horns, hundreds of heads of animals that man had killed. Yeah, and so as it was, my house was full of all these horns and heads, and I felt like I was living in a morgue. And I said, no more. We're not doing this. So anyway, we started fighting all the time. And about that time, I am trying to figure it out. My friend Jeannie had given me the names of a bunch of documentaries for my husband to watch. So to his credit, he watched them. He watched Cowspiracy. He watched Forks Over Knives. What the Hell? He watched Food Matters. He watched Speciesism, Vegucated, Harold Brown's Peaceable Kingdom. He watched all those videos, and Forks Over Knives began to really affect him because, his dad had died of a heart attack when he was 62 years old. And so Tommy began to put two and two together with the China study. And, when you're a cattle rancher, you make your money by selling cows. You don't make your money by keeping them and having babies and you don't make any money. That ain't, what else are you going to do? And so what I did was I challenged my husband on every level. I went out there one day. Now I went out there after I got the nerve because my friend Jeannie said, Renee, you need to start a blog on Facebook. Start a blog and tell your story. Because I was trying to figure out what I was going to do to save the cows from going to slaughter because he was going to send them all. He was just going to sell every last one of them now that I'd gone vegan because he couldn't work. I mean, I wouldn't let him sell the cows anymore. I mean, I flat out told him you can't sell those cows anymore. And, and he was going to do it anyway. He said, oh, yeah, I am. I'm going to sell them all. And the handwriting was on the wall. Divorce number 2 was coming up. And, and it wasn't because we had an affair. It was because I'd gone vegan. And so, I mean, he'd have probably preferred me to have an affair at that point. And that would have made more sense, But anyway, so after I showed him those videos, and he watched them, I then began to do that blog like my friend Jenny, and I started it on Facebook. It was called the Vegan Journal of a Cattle Rancher's Wife, and that's where the Rowdy Girl story really started because I began to appeal. I didn't know who I was talking to. I had never done such a thing. I poured my heart out and I told the world what was going on. And next thing you know, vegans are coming out of the woodwork to me and they're wanting to know how they can help. And so I hatched a plan with Kip Anderson actually called me. Kip Anderson is the producer of Cowspiracy, What the Hell, Seaspiracy, the upcoming Christspiracy that's going to be out very soon. Anyway, so Kip and I became friends very, very early on. He contacted me. I didn't contact him. I didn't know who he was. He contacted me and said, Renee, what can I do to help? And what are you trying to do? And I mean, because I was crying all over the place. I mean, the internet, I was just vomiting all this. I'm a new vegan, a former cattle rancher, and it was like all the vegans out there were like, I mean, I was an anomaly. I didn't know that I was such an anomaly. But all of a sudden they were trying to help me. And next thing you know, we hatched a plan between him, a fellow named Robert, and some others that, Robert was an attorney. Between Kip and his experience, he said, hey, do it on Indiegogo. That's what I did. Let's do a fundraiser and buy your husband's cows. And I was like, buy my cow, buy my husband's cows. All right. So, wow, well, isn't that going to go over good? Like a ton of bricks. And, but what else was I going to do? He was going to sell them. And at that point, they were like, when I went vegan, Callum, it was like everything inside of me was now on my outsides. I now know what it feels like to be a vampire in reverse. Vampire in reverse. That's what it's like. And you go from eating carcasses and blood one day to all of a sudden you can't hardly stomach and stand the thought. It just makes you want to puke, vomit, and cry all at the same time. And I always say it's kind of like being a vampire, but in reverse. There's no way, and I couldn't stomach it, and Tommy and I were like this. We were fighting all the time, and so after I started that journal, that secret journal, Tommy didn't know. He didn't know I was doing that. And then I went to him the next day, and we were out in the pasture, and I said, "Hey," I said, "Look, you send them cows up the road." He was rounding them up. I said, "You send them cows up the road one more time, and I'm going to follow you. And I'm going to bring them all back home with your credit card. I'm going to go buy them back. And I'm going to bring them back home. And don't you mess with me. Don't you think for 1 minute I won't do it. Because I will. These cows are no longer, cattle. They're like people to me. They're like people. They're like my dogs and cats. There's no difference." And anyway, I said, "Look, why don't you let me buy your cows?" And he was like, "What? You want to buy my cows?" I said, he looked at me, he laughed out loud. He laughed like, "You want to buy my cows?" I said, "Well, what if I could buy them? How much would you sell them to me for? If you're going to sell them all anyway, why don't you sell them to me? What are you going to do with them?" I said, "Well, I'll figure that out. I said, I could start a sanctuary right here." He said, "A sanctuary for cows in Texas." I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, I don't know anybody that's done anything like that." I said, "Well, then it needs to be done." And he said, "Renee, you've lost your mind." I said, "Well, maybe so. But what would you sell them to me for? Give me a number." And he said, "Okay, Renee, I'll play along. If I was going to sell them to my wife, I'd sell them to you for 30,000. I could probably get 40 or so for them at the sale barn, but I'll give them to you for 30."
At least you got the friends and family discount as well.
Family discount. And I said, "Okay. And will you let me lease the property, the land, for $1 a year?" He said, "Sure, Renee." I said, "Will you let me lease it for 2 years?" "Sure, Renee." He laughed. And we shook on it. Hey, you shake Tommy's hand, he tells you he's going to do something, it's as good as gold. That man, a handshake, even just his word. You don't need no contract. Well, he didn't think I'd do it. So then I go back to all my friends on that journal and Kip and Robert and all, and I tell them, and next thing you know, they're helping me put that fundraiser together, and the fundraiser launches. And I come back and I tell Tommy, I've already raised $5,000. He was like, "What?" And I said, "Look here." He said, What are you doing?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, I got a Facebook group, and I got all these friends, all these vegan friends, and they're helping me." And he says, "What?" He was like, he didn't know. I did all this behind his back. Well, couldn't tell him. And anyway, in less than 4 months, I raised the money and I bought his cow. So there you go. That's what started all this. And now every step of the way, my husband was more and more convinced. And on May 2nd, 2015, he went vegan.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Was it like a? I'm guessing for someone that's like a multi-generational like rancher as well. Like that's a big shift for him. That's not like that's not an easy feat to kind of like go along with.
No, no, and he's a he's a big, tall Texan, uh, multi-generational cattle rancher. His great grandpa, you know, had, the spurs from the 1800s that Tommy still has them spurs. It has SON on them. That's the Sonnen brand. He has the spurs, he has the brands that they branded the cows with, SON. And his great grandpa would would round up them cows up in San Antonio and corral them and move them all into Houston where they had a slaughterhouse. Sure
I
did.
think I think like probably what I'm about to say is probably going to piss a lot of people off in the vegan community, but like I don't feel like ranchers and farmers are bad people. Like it's normally like a generational thing that they've kind of grown up in that community and don't know anything else.
Mhm.
But it's been obviously so normalized in that system that like obviously the normalized violence that they don't know anything different. Whereas obviously you get many vegans that it's very much kind of like judging them for doing something that they know nothing else.
Yeah. Well, I agree 100%. We can't be hating on cattle ranchers. They're just part of. They're not the problem. The system's the problem. The system that we are collectively in has created a way for cattle ranchers to exist, and they have to have ag exemption. They have to comply with all these rules and regulations, and it's harder and harder for them to make money. uh they are they're not really the problem. It's big ag. It's the big agriculture conglomerates. It's our government that doesn't give subsidies to the farmers if they want to transition out of raising animals to raising food for humans. uh there's not the same subsidies as there is for animal farmers, and that's because all the lobbyists that go to our government are like entrenched in animal ag, themselves, generations, deep. And so we got to get vegans becoming staffers in our government. We got to have vegan lobbyists. Uh, that's where people need to be going. All you young people out there listening to this, become a vegan lobbyist. Go talk to the Agriculture Fairness Alliance. I'm on the board of directors of that. Connie Spence is the founder. And, that's what she's passionate about. And I'm as passionate as she is. Well, she's probably more passionate than me because it's her organization. But I am very involved in helping do whatever I can to help affect change in our government, whenever she needs me.
Mm. No, that's incredible, and I think that's the thing that we do need more people that are like obviously lobbying for change. When I first got to Australia, I had to go do farm work to kind of stay for a second year. So I went and worked on a banana farm, and it was in a rural community full of farmers and full of ranchers, and like it took me like a while to realize because obviously I got there being like, oh, this is gonna be like a bit daunting for me because obviously a vegan going into like a very rural community. But at the same time, some of these people were like the loveliest, nicest, and like most helpful people that you'll meet. Like they were so non-judgmental towards me as well, and like the same back to them. Like, and I think it kind of changed my perception that these people aren't psychotic. They're not doing this because
They're the salt of the earth.
yeah.
They really are. They're the salt of the earth. We have cattle ranchers that donate to us. We have cattle ranchers that are members of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. They love what we're doing. Believe it or not.
Yeah. Like, so obviously being a rancher and community to yourself, I'm guessing that you're just such an like anomaly to them that like I'm guessing there was a lot of positivity as well because obviously there's people that probably have the same kind of thought process, but obviously don't do anything about it.
Yeah, they don't. They don't even they what happened is when our story started going viral, on CBS Evening News, your regular cattle ranchers and their families saw our story on TV. They were watching CBS Evening News with Dan Rather, and then there we are in their living room. And so they began to contact me, and they began to want to know, more, because it struck a nerve, with some of them. It would struck a nerve because a lot of these ranchers' wives, particularly, they don't like it, just like I didn't. They don't like it. And I've talked to more women than I can count that has contacted me, had the same heart that I had, but they don't know how to do anything about it.
Yeah, I can imagine that's like a big thing that people like. It is very eye opening as well, especially when you're living in that kind of like in those conditions where you're seeing this every day. In comparison to like the normal average Joe like me that's not seeing this from like the perspective of like the cattle rancher or the cattle rancher's wife. I'm just seeing it as a perspective from someone like from a point of view a while away. I'm not like implemented into that community to even understand how it all works.
That's right. I had a eighth generation cattle rancher come up to me at a event, my first event where I was tabling as a sanctuary, and he walked up to me in his Stetson hat, his Levi, polyester Western pants, his starch shirt, his cowboy boots with silver tips. He walked up to me and he said, "Hey, young lady, my wife tells me that you turned your cattle ranch into a vegan farm." He said, "So I want to tell you something." He said, I got 6 kids, I think it was, and 2 of them are vegetarian and 1 of them's vegan, and they don't want to inherit the ranch. What am I going to tell them? What can they do besides farm cattle? What would you tell them? And I was like, I was just probably a year into this at the time. This has been happening to me since day one, and I said, well, I'd tell them that if they really, really, really want to change, that they'll figure it out. If they really, really, really want to change, 110% of their being has to be in it. I said, I don't have any answers for you. And I said, I didn't know I was going to become a sanctuary. I didn't know this was going to happen. 110% of my passion was in it. And and I'll tell you, I have tried to help farmers. It's hard. It's hard to help farmers because they don't know anything else. Not everybody is going to have the same skill set and certain whatever that I had to do what I did. You got it's not easy. That's why our government's got to get involved.
And then from those discussions, is this why then you created obviously the rancher advocacy program as well,
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of help these people figure out what to do?
It was born. The rancher advocacy program was born from my heart of wanting to help ranchers. Whenever they had an emotional connection to what they were doing, that's really the full reason I started RAP, was to be there for them whenever they started having those emotional connections. It turned into a program to help farmers transition out of animal ag and into plant-based farming. And I was very fortunate to be associated with a group of people that had a deep philanthropic heart. And so we were able to help one farmer, all the way up to a pilot program of growing mushrooms. They actually grew mushrooms. Well, we put the money in through this foundation to take care of all the cows that were there, to clean up one of the poultry barns, and to actually start growing mushrooms in there. And you can see that in the Rowdy Girl documentary. We did document that, but they couldn't sustain it. And so, when if they can't sustain it, and the people that were investing the money, they just couldn't keep putting the money in, it became real clear that it was just going to be a bottomless pit. And so, at some point, farmers have to either have whatever it is they need to do what they got to do, or they need government assistance, and when you're straddled with debt, it makes it doubly hard, so yeah. So rap was, started out as a way when farmers started having a change of heart, and then it evolved into trying to help them transition. I'm not trying to do that anymore. I don't want to try to be a fairy godmother anymore. It was a a hard lesson for me. Very hard. Now rap is really about inspiring, educating. We're cutting edge. I mean, if you look at our social media, our rap social media, we're very cutting edge on what we talk about, how we educate, how we inspire. Now, people do contact me still. Farmers do contact me, and I will give them resources. I do whatever I can to, turn them, like I'll send them to other farm transition orgs, because we're the first. I mean, I'm the first big mouth that started wanting to transition farms. Nobody was transitioning farms. There was no transformation. There was no, whatever the animal outlook. There wasn't any of them, none of them, until I started raising my big mouth. But more power to them. I hope they succeed, in helping farmers. And so I do turn. I mean, I will refer there, because I'm not doing it anymore. I'm doing it different. Yeah.
I love that. And then obviously it got turned into a documentary as well, and
Yeah.
which I'm still waiting for the time when it actually gets released so I can actually watch it. Especially over here, like the other side of the world.
So you're in Australia.
I'm in Australia at the moment, yeah, originally from England, but living in Australia.
Well, so the Rowdy Girl documentary is, if you go to rowdygirlfilm.com, you can see where all the screenings are coming up, and you can see where we've been. We had our international release premiere at Hot Docs in Canada, and then we had our U.S. premiere at the Hampton Film Festival, and since then we've been all over the place, all over the country, and in the Ukraine, in Brazil, in Korea, Estonia. I'll be in Sebastopol next week. I'll personally be there at the Rialto Cinema, where the documentary is screening. I'll be there for the Q&A. So, and we just got another grant. We just got another grant to propel the documentary into the community. It's going to be in universities. If you want to have it screened in your hometown, reach out to me, Renee at rowdygirlsanctuary.org, and I will make sure that you get sent to the proper person that handles all that. But now, we are now able to start having the documentary screened in universities and community gatherings and those sorts of things.
I love that. So obviously you've got the documentary, you've got the sanctuary. There's so many other things that you're doing, but is there any new things coming?
My book.
Oh, you got a book. Amazing.
Well, I got a book I finished, and I have an agent, United Talent Agency in New York. And in fact, we're meeting tomorrow It's been a long time coming. Let me tell you, that proposal is going to be going out to publishers all over the place. So fingers crossed we get a deal. So put it out in the world.
Oh, that's incredible. No, I love
Now
that.
the book tells everything.
Well, when it finally gets released, I can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
Um, so do you think, like, obviously with you being very spiritual and obviously with the yoga and everything else, that this is kind of everything intertwined has created this whole entire journey for you and made you more compassionate towards obviously everything that's gone on throughout the last however many years?
Yeah, my spiritual the fabric, the part of me that is really all of me, um, is what sustains me. I am deeply, deeply spiritual, deeply connected to a power greater than me. Um, I'm in recovery. You know, I struggled with alcohol and drugs for many years, and I've been in recovery a long time. And so I've had to learn to, rely on a higher power. I've had to learn to rely on God. Um, and yes, I started out in my early days. I was raised Christian, and and then something happened to me, and then I veered off of my Christian faith, and I went into studying Buddhism and Taoism and Hinduism and Sikhism, and I've always had a profound love for theological studies. I mean, I love studying all kinds of religions and what they, I like to find the common ground of religions. And currently, I'm reading the Holy Megillah, which is a secret book. It's like the holy journey. The holy book of the Nazarene way, which I'm really resonating with. And so, I really do believe that my spiritual fabric uh, is what has kept me from going crazy. It's what's kept me from wanting to throw in the towel. It never occurs to me that something can't be done. It never occurs to me that things are too hard. It never occurs to me that, we've been through 3 floods. Our organization has been through 3 massive floods, hurricanes, where we've had to evacuate all of our animals, where our property and our home has been devastated with waters, 10 feet high, and I've been able to muster whatever it takes uh, to direct disaster recovery efforts so that all the animals are safe, and we are, and it's been a real journey. We finally moved our organization after the 3rd flood. We moved from Angleton, Texas, to Welder, where we are now. We're in Central Texas, and and so now we're more in a drought centric uh, part of the world, but we're doing so much better here. I mean, we're finally grounded, and my husband's building irrigation, and we're building a medical treatment facility here for the cows, because we have a lot of aging bovine, and it's really stressful to have to load them up and trailer them off for an hour to go to a food animal department, which is, all the large animal vets, when they treat cows, they go in a food animal department. And so I made a decision after one of our cows passed away. Her name was Stormy. After the 1st flood, she got pneumonia and died in my arms at Texas A&M. I made a decision that I was going to build a medical treatment facility in Stormy's name, and we're doing that. We're on our 3rd phase. We've built the 100-foot by 80-foot cow house. We've put in all the irrigation. We've put in roads, electricity, and we're going to be building the lab, and we're going to be building all the stalls and all in 2025. Our end of year campaign is going to be all about that. So, you know, you just have to take your spiritual resolve. I mean, it's like God, what I really do believe is God could and would if he were saw it. I really do believe that the power inside of me is so great. And as long as I can get me, my little old peony self out of the way, as long as I stay out of the way and I stay plugged into that power that is great, then great things happen. You know, that story of Moses that parted the Red Sea?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Well, in fact, my AA sponsor tells me that all the time. She says, Renee, you're like my little Moses. Hey, Moses didn't do that, And so I kind of look at things like that with my life. I ain't doing nothing. I just show up. Rowdy Girl inspires me, motivates me, encourages me. I think there's a higher power working through her that is linked straight into me.
That's incredible. I love that. That's absolutely beautiful.
I believe it. That. I really do believe it.
So for the people listening that obviously want to get involved, to obviously help you, and if there's any way they can help, how can they? Well, firstly, where can they find you, and then secondly, how can they help you?
Well, we just built a new website. This is our 10th year anniversary coming up. So February of 2025, we will be 10 years old. So October 31st next month, I'll be 10 years vegan, and I'm having a party. It's going to be online. Y'all wait. Y'all look for it. We're going to have a party online, and it's going to be fun. But you can find me at rowdygirlsanctuary.org. You can help by becoming a member. That's one of the best ways you can support. And we have about 750 members right now. Our goal is to get to 800 by the end of the year. And I think our average donation is $22 a month. You just donate whatever you can every month. And that goes into helping us do all the work that we do here, all the work that we do in our activism out in the world. I travel all the time. I'm asked to speak and tell this story all over the country and in other parts of the world even. And so whatever I can do, to help share the message, I do. But the documentary, the documentary is rowdygirlfilm.com. Our Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and TikTok, Rowdy Girl Sanctuaries all over, all of that. I mean, that's what you can do, and you can plug in, subscribe to our newsletter, join the Rowdy herd.
And I put up a story the other day, seeing if there was any questions that anybody had to ask you. And the one thing that came back quite a few times, more than any other question, was, do you take volunteers?
All the time. Yes, people, all you have to do is go to the website and fill out that form, and we get in touch with you, and you can come volunteer. We have an annual Heartworking Volunteer Day. It's where we, have big projects, and we do a big thing where a lot of people come, and we have food and sponsors and all that. And, and if you have a group that wants to come volunteer, just let us know and we'll make it happen.
Amazing. Renee, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you, Callum. You let me know when this comes out. I'll be sure to put it on our website and share it far and wide.
I will do. I love that. Thank you.